What if I told you the American dream is quietly dying, not with an explosion, but with a silent financial collapse already underway? The signs are right in front of us. Grocery prices skyrocketing, credit card debt at record highs, banks tightening their grip, and the dollar, once the world's symbol of strength, slowly losing its power. But here's the chilling part. Most people have no idea how close we are to a full-scale economic meltdown. Experts warn that by 2025, the U.S. financial system could face a crisis bigger than 2008, one that could shatter savings, freeze banks, and rewrite global power forever. Behind closed doors, Washington and Wall Street know what's coming. Trillions in government debt, a Federal Reserve trapped between inflation and collapse, and a global economy shifting away from the dollar. This isn't fear-mongering, it's the uncomfortable truth the media doesn't want to talk about. The collapse won't happen in a single day. It's happening right now. So before you scroll past another headline, stop, because in the next hour we're exposing the real story behind America's financial crisis, who caused it, who's profiting from it, and what you must know to protect yourself before it's too late. The warning signs, the cracks in America's economy didn't appear overnight. They've been forming for years, hidden behind record stock prices, flashy tech growth, and government reassurances that everything was under control. But beneath the surface, the truth was different. Inflation remained stubbornly high even after countless interest rate hikes. Families watched their grocery bills double while their paychecks stayed the same. Credit card debt soared past $1.3 trillion, and Americans began borrowing just to afford basic living expenses. Meanwhile, major corporations announced massive layoffs. Commercial real estate collapsed as offices sat empty, and small businesses struggled to survive rising costs. The government kept printing money to cover its endless spending, while the Federal Reserve tried to contain the damage, only to make it worse. What we're witnessing now in 2025 isn't just another economic slowdown. It's the result of years of denial, overspending, and dependence on debt. The warning signs were there all along, flashing bright red, but no one wanted to look. The debt trap at the heart of America's financial crisis lies one terrifying number: $35 trillion. That's the size of the U.S. national debt, a mountain so large that even the interest payments now cost more than the entire defense budget. For decades, politicians ignored the danger. Every administration promised growth would fix it. But in 2025, that illusion has shattered. The government is now borrowing money just to pay interest on previous loans, a financial death spiral. Foreign nations like China, Japan, and Saudi Arabia are quietly dumping U.S. bonds. As confidence fades, the Federal Reserve has only one tool left: print more dollars. But more printing means more inflation, and more inflation means less purchasing power for ordinary Americans. It's a trap with no escape. Either the U.S. defaults or the dollar collapses. Both outcomes lead to the same destination: a deep, unavoidable reckoning. The banking breakdown, the first dominoes have already fallen. Regional banks that once fueled small-town economies are disappearing, unable to survive rising interest rates and shrinking deposits. In 2023 and 2024, we saw the early warnings: Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank, and others collapsing under the weight of bad bets. But in 2025, the cracks have spread to much larger institutions. As depositors lose trust, they rush to pull out cash. The result? Modern-day bank runs that happen not over days, but in minutes, triggered by social media panic. The Federal Reserve scrambles to inject emergency liquidity, but confidence is gone. Even big players like JP Morgan and Wells Fargo are hoarding reserves, preparing for the worst. Experts warn that one major bank failure could unleash a global chain reaction. Once trust in banks breaks, the entire financial system begins to crumble, and this time, there may be no bailout big enough to stop it. The collapse of confidence. Every financial crisis begins with the same thing: fear. And in 2025, fear spreads faster than ever. Social media feeds fill with panic. Is my money safe? Should I withdraw cash? What happens if the banks close? Each post fuels more anxiety and confidence. The foundation of the economy begins to evaporate. As spending slows, businesses lose customers. Layoffs rise. The stock market swings wildly, wiping out retirement savings overnight. Ordinary Americans realize the system they trusted for decades may no longer be stable. People start turning to gold, crypto, and tangible assets, desperate to preserve what little they have left. The U.S. dollar, once the world's ultimate safe haven, starts losing its crown. Confidence is everything in modern economics. Once it's gone, no amount of government promises or Federal Reserve interventions can bring it back quickly. The collapse doesn't begin with numbers, it begins with belief. Global fallout: when the U.S. economy catches a cold, the world gets pneumonia. In 2025, that phrase has never been truer. As the dollar weakens, global markets shake. Nations that hold trillions in U.S. debt from Japan to Germany see their reserves shrink in value. Developing countries that borrowed in dollars face a nightmare: rising repayment costs as their own currencies crash. Trade slows. Oil prices surge. Food shortages begin in parts of Africa and Asia. Meanwhile, BRICS nations led by China, Russia, and India seize the moment to push a new, dollar-free financial order. The petrodollar system that dominated for decades begins to fracture. Central banks worldwide start buying gold instead of U.S. bonds. The message is clear. Global trust in the American financial empire is fading fast. The collapse of the dollar isn't just a U.S. problem anymore, it's rewriting the global balance of power. The new economic order: out of every collapse comes a reset, and 2025 may mark the beginning of a new financial era. With the dollar under threat, the U.S. government pushes for a digital dollar, a centralized currency designed to replace paper money and restore stability. But critics warn it's a double-edged sword, giving authorities total control over transactions and privacy. Meanwhile, decentralized finance grows stronger. Cryptocurrencies, gold-backed assets, and tokenized investments become mainstream alternatives. For the first time, ordinary citizens can hold wealth outside government reach. Corporations adapt, automation expands, and AI-driven markets redefine the meaning of work and income. The old economic system built on infinite debt and blind trust is fading. What replaces it could either empower individuals or enslave them financially. The question is, who will control the new order, the people or the system? Can America recover? History proves America has always risen from crisis, from the Great Depression to 2008. But this time, recovery demands more than just stimulus checks and Wall Street bailouts. To rebuild, the U.S. must confront hard truths. Spending must be cut, industries rebuilt, and real production prioritized over speculation. The political divide must shrink, or reform will remain impossible. A new generation of Americans, younger, tech-driven, and globally aware, could be the key. They see the flaws in the old system and are building new solutions through innovation and independence. Yes, America can recover, but it must first admit that endless borrowing and artificial growth are unsustainable. The next decade will determine whether the U.S. remains a global superpower or becomes just another fallen empire remembered in history books. The financial crisis of 2025 isn't just about money, it's about power, trust, and the choices we make. Every great nation believes it's too big to fail, until it does. But collapse doesn't mean the end. It means a chance to rebuild smarter, stronger, and fairer. The question is, will we learn or repeat the same mistakes that brought us here? The future of the U.S. economy, and perhaps the world, depends on how we act now. Stay informed, protect your savings, demand accountability, and never assume it can't happen here. If you found this documentary revealing, hit subscribe, like, and share, because awareness is the first defense against collapse. The storm is coming, but knowledge is your shelter.